Welcome back to Case 0360, your absolute #1 home for the most unfiltered, raw, and deep dive criminal breakdowns and historical investigations on the internet. I'm your host, Pablo Escater, and today we are stepping directly into the dark, bloody heart of narco history to dissect a chapter of sheer terror that completely brought a sovereign nation to its knees. We are tracking the absolute psychological breaking point of the wealthiest, most ruthless criminal mastermind to ever walk the earth. When you hear the name Pablo Escobar, you immediately think of the billions of dollars, the private zoos, and the unchecked power of the Medellín Cartel. But there was a specific moment in the mid-1980s when the hunter officially became the hunted, and the Colombian government attempted to strip the drug kingpin of his ultimate shield by enforcing an extradition treaty with the United States. Escobar's response wasn't just a tactical defense. It was a campaign of absolute cold-blooded vengeance that transformed the streets of Bogotá and Medellín into a literal war zone. Today we are breaking down the terrifying mechanics behind the revenge of Pablo Escobar, focusing on the moment he unleashed a wave of unmitigated terror against the supreme judiciary, culminating in the horrific 1985 siege of the Palace of Justice. Before we deconstruct the secret alliances, the financial pipelines, and the extreme violence that forever altered the global war on drugs, do me a massive favor, smash that subscribe button right now. Drop an absolute hammer on the like button of this video, and turn on that notification bell so you never miss a single piece of premium true crime breakdown. To truly comprehend the sheer scale of Pablo Escobar's revenge, you have to look past the standard Hollywood glamorization and look directly at his absolute, terrifying guiding principle: plata o plomo, silver or lead. By 1984, Escobar had amassed an empire that controlled over 80% of the cocaine flooding into the United States, generating billions of dollars in cash. But his immense wealth couldn't buy him safety from his single greatest psychological nightmare: a federal prison cell on American soil. Escobar openly declared that he would rather have a grave in Colombia than a jail cell in the United States. When Colombian President Belisario Betancourt officially signed an agreement to extradite Colombian narcotics traffickers to face American justice, Escobar viewed it as a direct declaration of war. He didn't just hide in the jungles. He weaponized his immense financial reserves to systematically dismantle the entire legal infrastructure of his country, starting with the brutal assassination of the Minister of Justice, Rodrigo Lara Bonilla, who had dared to expose his criminal operations. But the true apex of Escobar's campaign of vengeance took place on November 6, 1985, in what remains one of the most audacious and horrific attacks on a democratic institution in modern history. The Colombian Supreme Court was actively preparing to rule on the constitutionality of the extradition treaty, a ruling that could have permanently validated the weapon the United States was using to target the Medellín Cartel. Understanding the existential threat this posed, Escobar didn't just send his standard street assassins. Instead, he formed a high-stakes, highly controversial alliance with a leftist guerrilla group known as the M-19. Intelligence documents and historical consensus have since revealed that Escobar and the Medellín Cartel funneled over $2 million directly to the M-19 rebels to completely finance a heavily armed, full-scale military assault on the Palace of Justice in Bogotá. The objective of this horrific operation was dual-pronged, combining political theater with absolute criminal destruction. Heavily armed guerrillas stormed the massive government building, taking over 100 individuals hostage, including several of the country's top Supreme Court justices. But as the chaotic siege unfolded over several terrifying days, the true motive behind Escobar's financial backing became devastatingly clear. Before the Colombian military launched a massive, heavy-handed counterattack using tanks and elite forces, the occupiers systematically targeted the central archives of the Ministry of Justice. They explicitly sought out, piled up, and burned thousands of legal documents, extradition files, and active criminal cases involving Pablo Escobar and the leaders of the Medellín Cartel, completely wiping out years of forensic evidence in a matter of hours. The aftermath of this single act of vengeance was an absolute tragedy of unprecedented proportions. By the time the smoke finally cleared over the ruined Palace of Justice, More than 100 lives were completely lost, including 12 Supreme Court justices who were brutally executed inside the building or caught in the crossfire of the military's aggressive assault. Escobar's revenge successfully paralyzed the Colombian judicial system for years, sending a chilling, definitive message to every judge, politician, and police officer in the country. If you stand against the cartel, no government institution, no matter how sacred, can protect you. It marked the definitive transition of Escobar from a wealthy black market smuggler into a full-scale narco-terrorist, setting a bloody precedent of bombings, assassinations, and structural violence that would consume Colombia until his eventual death on a rooftop in 1993. The narrative that Pablo Escobar was merely a criminal businessman is completely shattered by the historical reality of his actions. By financing the destruction of his nation's highest court and systematically executing the legal minds who stood for the rule of law, his campaign of vengeance proved that he was willing to burn his own country to the ground just to protect his empire from the reach of global justice. Now, I want to hear from the absolute best true crime and history minds in the comments section right below. Do you think the Colombian government's aggressive stance on extradition justified the extreme measures they took during the counterattack? Or did their response play directly into Escobar's hands by multiplying the chaos? How do you think the legacy of the Palace of Justice siege permanently altered the global approach to fighting transnational cartels? Drop your deep analytical breakdowns, share your historical insights below, and let's get a massive discussion going. Thank you so much for locking in with us today on Case 0360. Smash that like button, subscribe to the channel, and share this video with every single history enthusiast in your circle. I'm Pablo Escater. Keep your eyes on the radar, and I'll catch you guys right back here for the next major deep dive investigation.